Hey guys, well, good afternoon, and I know that you are awaiting Paul Beckwith, and something flew in front of me. Awaiting Paul Beckwith, and so am I. I sent him the link. He knows I set up the show. And I don't know what happened, but even if Paul doesn't show up, we're gonna have a good show. So I'll say, hey, I've got stuff lined up anyway, regardless, because there's always a contingency plan, right? There should be anyway. So and it's early. I usually do the show at what is it? 9 o'clock at night. So it's actually really early for me. And maybe these testing out these different times would be all right. So I'm going to say hi to all of you, and hi Nostradamus and Poppy Davis, and hi Hey Jude and Rich Diana. Hi Andy. Hello Andy. Andy's here to make us all feel so much better. We love Andy. Phil B. Hi, Philip. Hi, Phil. Hello. Yeah, he says, is the post cop report going to be those like 3 words? And Hunter. Hi, Hunter. And John Bell. Boiled Rope. Everybody. I don't see Paul responding to my link yet, but listen, who knows? Who knows? Hello, Kameshwari. I'll have to change everything if he doesn't show up. And we will give him a pass. I mean, he's been gone now from home. He's been away from Shackleton now for 2 weeks, right? And that's got to be hard. I mean, let alone the wife and kids. But anyway, so I hope I set everything up all right, and that you guys, well, we'll just wait for him. In the meantime, I have been COP26 all like for 2 weeks. And I didn't stop today. And I guess, I don't know, you've probably all seen this clip. I'm going to play it anyway. I'm going to play it anyway, and we're going to talk about him, and we'll talk about everything. I'll take your questions. You guys can lead some of this, but I'm going to start with this. Come on, guy.
To all delegates, I apologize for the way this process has unfolded, and I'm deeply sorry. I also understand the deep disappointment. But I think, as you have noted, it's also vital that we protect this package.
What do you think? Does he know we're fucked? I'm sorry. I'm already starting out negative and I didn't want to. Kind of hard not to.
Delegates, please.
Wow.
Delegates, thank you, friends.
Paul's not here in the green room yet,
We
guys.
need to proceed. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was the end, and it started out with quite a beginning. We really had high hopes, didn't we? Did we have high hopes? Well, no, we didn't have high hopes. I had some hopes that more would happen, but maybe I'm just being naive. I really don't know what I had. How about you guys? Let's see. I just started TCR. Paul has not come in yet. I don't even see that he's picked up the link. And we talked about this last night. I will just tell you, yes, I set it up for 4 Eastern, 9 your time because he's still in Glasgow. I say it, Glasgow. And that was that. Big thumbs up, and he knows we don't need to do too much, but anyway, we'll do fine. And yes, our job is to educate, and we will talk about this. We will talk, and inappropriate positivity is depressing and toxic. Well, I'm not inappropriately positive about anything. I'm just me. And that's why you're here. I'm not here to be necessarily anything but who I am, and that's why you're here, right? Of course, you were here to see Paul. So we're not going to right now, unless he comes in. But I thought another thing I would do, I'm just going to play with a few things, and then we can talk about them. I've got one more I want to show you. And this guy, holy shit, this guy.
From Demand Climate Justice. You have the floor.
Assad Raymond, War on Want, speaking on behalf of the Climate Justice constituency. I'm finding it difficult to convey our anger and frustration at this utter betrayal of people. Hollow words about climate emergency from the richest countries, an utter disregard of the science and equity, false ambition and disdain for justice, a license to pollute with net zero 2050 and carbon markets. You have made decisions, as one party acknowledged, decisions about life and death for millions. Yet 500 years of colonial rule and white supremacy, looting the wealth of the global south, and you still value your profits over the lives of black, brown and indigenous people. The rich have refused to do their fair share. More empty words on climate finance. You've turned your backs on the poorest, who face a crisis of COVID, economic and climate apartheid because of the actions of the richest. It's immoral for the rich to talk about their future children and grandchildren when the children of the global south are dying now. We needed concrete solidarity and cooperation. The rich offered more empty words. You're not keeping 1.5 alive. You're setting us on a pathway to 2.5 degrees. You're setting the planet on fire and claiming to act. Your greenwashing kills, and no amount of spinning will mask that. But we are not without hope. It just will not rest with you, but with us, and we don't compromise on justice.
Holy shit, that was something else, wasn't it? Oh my God. I thought that was really, really good. I watched that and I was moved. There was a few things I watched at the end. Now, I watched, was it the day before yesterday? I watched all of the wrap up, and I particularly was interested in the island nations and the African nations, and they were duly chastising when they needed to. It was quite moving. Cuba and Panama, Kenya was the representative for Kenya was extremely angry and moved. Because they are not the people that have created the problem. They're the throwaway countries. They're the trash cans. Yes, they are. Yeah, business as usual is good for business. I hear you. I hear you. Well, I don't see Paul yet, but okay. So I set these things up so we could talk about it. It's not Paul. He's not talking about things, but I do have an article, and I'll go into it's from Nature. And if Paul doesn't make it, we're going to talk about what this article shows us. Okay, guys, so here we go. This was just yesterday, and it said COP26 hasn't resolved the problem. Scientists react to the UN climate deal. The Glasgow Climate Pact is a step forward, researchers say, but efforts to decarbonize are not enough to limit global temperature rises to 2C. And 2C, which is ludicrous. I mean, with all the electric that they have, that the capitalists, the business people, the rich people have planned. I mean, the scientists, where were the scientists? And that's what I wanted to ask Paul more questions about. I saw Rockstrom. I didn't see that many scientists. And I don't have the stuff to pull up with the how much and who was on the take by the fossil fuel industry, but let's take a look at this. So government ministers at the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, have reached a deal on further steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions after discussions overran by 24 hours. On November 13th, representatives from nearly 200 countries agreed to the final text of the deal, with pledges further action to curb emissions, more frequent updates on progress, and additional funding for low and middle income countries. And guys, I will tell you, everything I heard was about money. Everything, money, 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 money. And of course, it's going to cost money to do mitigation. And most of it was, what I was hearing was adaptation for the first time. Adaptation. Because how can you mitigate what's already run away? Climate change. So researchers have expressed relief that the meeting did produce an agreement. But some left COP26 dissatisfied at the lack of stronger commitments to reduce emissions and failure to, agree for the loss and damage finance for countries that are vulnerable to climate change, like all the countries that the United States has shit on and European Union has shit on. We send our recycling to and destroy. So COP26 has closed the gap, but it has not solved the problem. This climate researcher said countries now need to come forward with more ambitious pledges to tackle climate change. Curbing emissions. The final 11-page document called the Glasgow Climate Pact says that greenhouse gas emissions must be reduced and carbon dioxide emissions must fall 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 for global warming to be maintained at 1.5 C, which was the magic number throughout the conference, above pre-industrial levels, which to me is and should never have been a compromised number. We should never even be near there. But, we knew this. How long ago did the scientists know this? And then how long ago did the fossil fuel industry know this? We've talked about this. We could have had 40 years of cleaning up. So, under the existing emissions reduction pledges, emissions will be nearly 14% higher by 2030 than in 2010. So countries acknowledge the need to reduce emissions faster and also agreed to report on progress annually. So for the first time in a COP text, nations agreed. They actually, they did agree to start eliminating the subsidies, right? So, however, this was the last minute everybody got all upset about. China and India, a promise in earlier drafts of the text to phase out coal was changed to phase down. India's climate and environmental minister, Bhupender Yadav, told the conference that richer nations should not expect poorer countries to stop subsidizing their fossil fuels, such as gas. The lowest income households rely on these to keep energy costs down. The deal also includes commitments from some countries on ending deforestation, reducing methane emissions, and a pledge from the financial sector to move trillions of dollars of investments into companies that are committed to net zero emissions. However, modeling suggests that the promises will still not be enough to limit global warming to 2°C above pre-industrial levels, the goal stated that was in the 2000 Paris Agreement 15. If countries meet their 2030 targets, global temperatures will still rise to 2.4°C above pre-industrial levels by 2100. This is the journal Nature. This is a reputable journal. This is not clickbait, garbage, or bullshit. All right, so this was an analysis that was published by Honey and colleagues that was published on the website Climate Action Tracker during the first week of COP26. We are well aware that ambitions have fallen short of the commitments made in Paris. COP26 President Alok Sharma told the conference in a speech shortly before negotiations concluded. We have kept 1.5 alive. They've kept it alive, guys. Yep. They've kept it alive. This is what I feel about that. And that they've kept it alive. Okay, we're going to keep going. They kept it alive. Yeah. But it's Pulse's week. And it will only survive if we keep our promises and translate commitments into rapid action. Charlie Gardner, a conservation biologist at the University of Kent in Canterbury, UK, who joined demonstrations outside the conference with the protest group Scientist Rebellion, which is great. Scientist Rebellion, all right, says more radical action is needed, such as ending fossil fuel production more quickly and transitioning economies away from constant growth, which is what the problem is with a country like India, who's saying they need the gas, that it was the Western nations that created the problem, but they still want to jump on board. There was considerable anger, over the failure by high-income nations to meet an earlier pledge to provide U.S. $1 billion in climate finance annually from 2020. The message coming out of this COP is every country for themselves, says Sarah Jane Ahmed, a climate finance researcher who advises the finance ministers of the V20, a group of 20 countries that are vulnerable. Oh, wait, let's see. I think I heard from Paul. Can you guys give me a second? Let's see what he said. Okay, Paul said, getting back to the flat much later, I'll be on. Okay, he's going to be on. Oh, I can't answer that. Okay, wait. All right, Paul's with us. All right, Paul, here in the green room. Yay, everybody. We were reading an article, Paul, but let's get you on. I don't see you.
Okay,
You're not
yet. I'm in the car. I need about 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll be all set up.
All right, call me
home.
back.
I'm about 3 minutes from home.
Okay.
With Heidi and Charles. And
all right.
So hang on. I'll be on in like 10, 15 minutes at the most.
Okay, this is fantastic. Call me back. I'll finish the article. All right. Okay. Awesomely wonderful. I'm happy now. Yes, I am a happy person. Okay, so let's finish the article. And where is the article? Okay, here we go. So we are at the money part. All right, so here we are. We're at the money part. However, the Glasgow Climate Pact impact includes that commitment to double adaptation finance, adaptation funding to help the lowest income countries improve climate resilience to 40 billion by 2025. Adaptation finance is around 1/4 of the 80 billion climate finance currently available every year to low and income middle income countries. They were complaining that they did not get their money. All right, that was today because I was listening. Oh my God, I will tell you, after I was listening to the UK Parliament, I was listening to Boris Johnson fend off reporters. It was great. Anyway, the deal also commits to continue work on a definition of climate finance that would be acceptable to all countries. This is essential if trust between developed and developing nations is to be regained, says Claire Shakaya of the International Institute for Environment and Development, a London think tank. At the moment, different countries define climate finance in different ways. So, for example, some count development aid, which might include funding for clean water or schools, such as climate finance. Now, some countries also count loans as climate finance, whereas others say climate finance should be provided as grants. So nations failed to agree on whether to create a loss and damage fund, and there was a lot of talk about that. A kind of insurance policy that would compensate climate vulnerable countries for damage resulting from emissions that they did not create. But the COP26 deal includes plans for an office connected to the United Nations, known as a technical assistance facility that will continue to research the idea. On the ground, it is clear that countries are suffering loss and damage from climate change as we speak. And these costs are being borne disproportionately, said conservationist Malik Amin Aslam, Pakistan's Minister for Climate Change. He's confident that such a fund will be created eventually, but thinks there will be many more discussions first. All right, really quickly. So in the United States, do you think that the citizens that support the authoritarian leaning wave here could give a shit about helping other countries with climate change mitigation when millions upon millions upon millions upon millions don't even believe it's happening? Okay. The price of carbon. COP26 negotiators also finalized the rules that govern international cooperation and carbon markets, ending a prolonged debate over how to implement this part of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. The new rules create an accounting system that is intended to prevent double counting of emissions reductions. When one company or country invests in emissions reductions that take place in another, for example, the new framework ensures that the reductions are only recorded once when reported to the UN. So most scientists and environmentalists applaud that outcome. They applaud that outcome. It's basically as good as one could hope for, said Robert Stavins, an economist at Harvard and Cambridge, Massachusetts. A common accounting framework will enable separate trading schemes such as those currently operating in Europe and China and parts of the United States to connect with each other, creating a more international market. But although the final text references and rights of indigenous peoples who manage vast tracts of threatened tropical forest, some activists question whether the new rules go far enough. They're relatively weak, said Jennifer Corpuz, a lawyer from Igorot people in the Philippines and chief policy lead at the nonprofit advocacy group for indigenous peoples, Niatiro. The good news is that we have more protections than we would have had under the rapidly growing voluntary carbon market. A recent analysis of the climate commitments put forward before COP26 estimated that the world would save about $300 billion annually by 2030 if a global carbon market were in place. If those savings were reinvested in climate mitigation It would more than double the projected annual emissions reductions in 2030, says James Edmonds, co-author of the analysis, and a climate scientist at the U.S. Department of Energy's Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and the University of Maryland. So this guy travels, huh? I wonder how often he flies. So there are tremendous opportunities here. All right, and the inclusivity issue. Although COP26 resulted in a final deal, the meeting drew criticism that many representatives of different non-governmental groups, including researchers, were prevented from observing the discussions. Now, see there, even before Paul comes on, I'm sorry, because the scientists were not there in the discussions. There we go. That gets the flush of the day. Okay. Definitely gets the flush of the day. That is the Environmental Coffee House flush of the day because the scientists were not there and they didn't get to watch. There were, 12,000 such representatives categorized into 9 constituencies such as business, young people, and researchers. Tracy Bach, an environmental lawyer who co-leads the researchers group Research Independent Non-Governmental Organization, says that for much of the conference, only one representative from each constituency was allowed to observe negotiations inside the rooms. At previous COP summits, many more observers have been permitted. Now, I don't know, maybe that was because of COVID, but if everybody had to get tested, like Paul was saying, and everybody was clean, then what the hell? The UK government had previously said that COP26 was the most inclusive COP summit ever because around 40,000 people, including government delegates, were allowed to attend, compared with 22,000 at COP25 in Madrid. Most observers came to COP to engage in the negotiation process, Bach says. Giving more people a badge to enter the conference center without letting them directly observe the negotiation is not engagement, morons, and does not make this COP necessarily more inclusive. So, and I watched a lot of Patricia Espinosa. She heads the UN Climate Convention Secretariat in Geneva. She told the meeting that the experience of observers at COP26 will be reviewed immediately to ensure greater inclusivity moving forward. So there you go. That's from the journal Nature. I enjoyed reading that to you guys. Paul will be with us. He's getting his family situated. They were out. And I guess they made this a vacation because it's probably the last one they'll ever take. I mean, I'm not leaving. Anyway, so what do you guys, oh, well, you know what, TCR, because you put so much into this, let's put your comment way up. Look, everywhere. Look at all of you took a lot of time to do this. Let me make this big. There we go. Oh, shit. Where'd it go? Okay, look at the trucks, all the little emoji things, the trucks. Look. Oh, sweetheart. Look at that. Oh my God. Andy, no scientists. That's either amazing or totally expected. Yeah, you could look at it a few ways, I guess. Amazing because I know where you come from in your thinking. So, by the way, I was listening to Boris Johnson this morning, and he was talking about what a success COP26 was and how much they've pledged and how much they've pledged and how much they've pledged. So a lot of females were there. There were some really good, strong women reporters. And one woman asked him a question. I don't even remember exactly what the question was. It was what he said. He said to her, "You are trying to suck as you blow." Now, I suppose that must be a very British thing. So she makes a comment that was a little disagreeable to him. So she is at the same time then sucking as she blows. Oh my God. I thought, well, that was really interesting. But there were some, and you know what I really liked? It was so much different watching. There was more civility than watching Congress in the United States and these snarky, awful people that are in the Congress in the United States. Boris, he's a hoot. Oh my God. I mean, he was very animated. He's very animated. Jeez. But sucking as she blows, you know? Wow. All right. So he's not here yet. I've already played you everything I had. So we're gonna look at your comments until Paul comes, so we keep you engaged. Because I mean, I could pull up more. So, oh gosh, Jennifer's here. Hi, Jen. I figured you were working. Paul's late, but that's okay. That's really okay. We don't have a time clock. And even if I have to, I can always make it into 2 videos. You know, it gives me time to be creative. So that's all right. All right. So, yes. No, it wasn't. Suck as you blow was not aimed at Boris Johnson. He said that to the woman that made a comment about the inaction, the inactivity, the the lower than expected expectation from the performance of this country, UK. I mean, the UK at COP as the president of COP. You know, but yeah. So it wasn't. It wasn't. Let's see who's commenting here. Wendy said, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson concisely bashes underperformance in COP26 in YouTube video. COP26 Boris Johnson expresses disappointment with climate deal. All right. And hi, Kate. Let's see. What else are you guys? Jennifer. Okay, you are. That's cool. He should be. Yeah. Boris Johnson is from the Trump School of Game Show hosts. Okay, that was good. I like that one. All right. So while we're waiting for Paul, let's play. We can play with sound effects, although I don't have all of them set up. But I did have quite a bit set up. BB says we're about to lose around 10 coastal cities due to sea level rise. So everyone move inward. Yeah, just like, you know, we can't even figure out an immigration policy in the United States. All right, I'm going to pull up Twitter. And while we're waiting with that annoying bunch of cheering, while we're waiting for Paul, I'm going to pull up then what I do. You know, what I do every day. Or not every day, but when I look. So COP26 had their tweets, and let's see here. Let's look at some pictures. I don't know. Let's see. Just a second, guys. Forgive me, but let's look at this tweet. I'll make it bigger for you. And we could look at a couple of these. We'll just be a little gossipy until Paul joins us and really tells us everything that's going on. It's been going on. All right. So Graham Eddles, he says, I can now reveal last night's actions as one of the funniest of COP26. We ended up in a projection fight where the official projectionist only ended up drawing more attention to our action and then came out and congratulated us. Oh, look, let's see. Let's make these bigger. Clean gas. I love it. You know, sometimes Twitter is like, it gives you a whole show. I mean, you're right there until Paul comes. It's there. Look at that. Clean gas dirty is a dirty lie. Oh my gosh. Cut methane now. They did this. Oh my God, with projection. That is so awesome. That's really cool. Yep, the things you could find. Put the rainbow back. Aw, wow. Put the rainbow back. Okay, wait, let's see if we can see. Go away, go away, go away. Go away, go away. Oh, wow. That was pretty good. I'm glad I found that one. So what do you say? Should we play some music underneath? Let's play some music and wait for Paul. We'll just play the nice little music. Oh, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Let's check out the other half. Welcoming, this was November 1st. Oh, let's look at these guys. Let's see how much fun can we make of these guys. Yeah, the lords and ladies. Look at, wait, there's the president. of the United States. Up there they are. Oh boy, there they are. Yeah, these are the people that are going to save the world. They're gonna save the planet. Oh, there he is, flirting with the princess. Oh my God. Holy shit. Hunter, what happened? Oh, British Columbia. All right, guess what? Paul is here. So I am going to get this off and I'm going to get this on and pull Paul on. Paul, you ready? You gotta be ready.
Yes, I am ready.
Oh, and we can hear you and everything. Welcome, Paul Beckwith.
Quality is very good.
Yes, I am. Everybody, welcome Paul Beckwith. Hello, Paul. We have had a fun show for 35 minutes, but everybody wanted you. They're sick of me. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I just been trying to navigate through Glasgow streets in the dark, going the wrong direction. Trying to avoid going the wrong direction. Avoided it for the most part. Anyway, we got home in one piece. So I was visiting with Mike Farragon.
Oh, you did? No kidding. Everybody know who Mike Farragon was. He started the oh my gosh, the near-term human extinction radio. Yeah.
Yes. He's and people call him a Scottish doomer, but he says he's just a realist. So anyway,
he's
it was
a realist.
Seeing him in 3D.
Wow, that's really awesome that you met him.
Seen him a lot in 2D, but in 3D it was a new experience. So.
Do you have headset? Because there's an echo. I can hear myself. Do you have a headset?
I do. Let me get it. I'll get it.
Sorry, guys. I know there's music on. I'll turn it off. I put it on to get him, but that's not where the stuff is coming from. Let's see. So we've got quite a few, and I turned the music off.
So what would you like? Do you want to ask me questions about COP, or do you want me to?
I think we should. I think you could give like an overview, and then I'm sure that we want to hear. Grateful Dan says thank you for your honesty. So we're expecting to hear some real honest assessment. What you saw, what you did, were your political expectations met? So
okay,
it's the floor is yours, and then we'll do questions from the cheering section.
Yeah, so personally for me, we accomplished quite a bit. When I say we, it's basically the Climate Emergency Forum, which is consists of, it was set up by Charles Gregoire and Heidi Brault, and it's basically Peter Carter and myself for the most part. Sometimes Peter Wadhams comes on, and we get together over Zoom every Friday afternoon and talk about some aspect of climate that we decide, the week before or a few days before. And then Charles does great editing of these videos and posts it. So we all were at COP, and Peter Carter unfortunately couldn't travel, so he stayed. So we had him connected on a lot of our talks on Zoom, and we did all kinds of press conferences. Usually every day, every day for the first week. In fact, 2 on one day for a couple of days. And then in the second week, the organizers of the conference kind of stole the conference rooms on Monday and Tuesday from us sort of at the last minute. So we lost a couple spots then, but we had spots on just about every other day. And those videos will be, most of them haven't been released. There's been a couple that have been done. The first one was released, but the others will be, they'll come out over the next, the next weeks, because, Charles wants to edit them and make them all, really nice. I mean,
yes.
he's very good at, getting them out sort of professionally.
Is he as good as I am?
They're not videos. I mean, if I was doing it, I would have just released them all as is, but Charles will polish them all up. And yeah, we've been doing a bit of sightseeing the last couple days. Hired a car, and they call it hired a car, not rented a car in the UK, and learned to drive on the wrong side of the left side of the road, and with the steering wheel, with the driver sitting on the right side of the car, and learning all this, and actually was stopped only once so far by the Scottish police, Scotland's
No
finest.
kidding. What?
Yeah,
What on
yesterday.
earth could that be?
Well, they have these signs with a diagonal slash, and
Yeah.
apparently that means the speed limit's 60 miles an hour, and if it's two diagonal slashes, it means it's 70 miles an hour. And
Oh,
apparently there was a notice on the road that said 40, I believe. So I'm going 40 miles an hour. I was going 37, but then there was a slash, which I wasn't sure what that was, and that meant I was supposed to speed up to 60 miles an hour. I didn't. So the police saw I was going 37 in what they said was the 60 zone. But it's only a very short distance when it was that. And then there was another sign saying 30 or 40 on the road. Like they write it right on the pavement.
but they know
Be-
that people were there as tourists.
No, I know. Anyway, they just stopped us and said, just wanted to make sure you guys are okay. So we started talking about oh we're silly Canadians, and we rented this car and we're okay. Just didn't realize what that slash meant. So they were very friendly and nice. So,
Well, you
but
do
it's
now.
funny. It's very you see a lot of police as you drive around. They seem to be all over the place. They have a lot of cameras. At intersections and radar cameras and stuff. So it's very uh, a surveillance state. I knew it was a bit like that, but it's much more so than in Canada.
Wow. Do they carry
But
guns?
the Scottish people are extremely friendly. Like they're really really friendly. They go out of their way to welcome people and stuff. And the city of Glasgow was the whole city had posters and signs for COP, and on the trains, on the subways, on the buses, stuff like that. The whole city got into it. And it in Scotland, most of the electricity is from hydropower, right? They're actually and the rail is going to they're zeroing all their emissions, and the buses and cars. There's a lot of electric cars, a lot of charging stations in Europe, and of course the cars are much smaller. They're used to higher fuel prices. Over many years in European countries, so they have a lot smaller cars, and a lot of in all of the housing, they have hot water on demand, so people don't have there's no hot water tank. There's a machine which when you turn on the hot water tap, there's flow through the hot water line, and then that's detected by a machine which then heats it up. I think it's natural gas. There's some electric ones, so there's no heat wasted from a hot water tank. um, so it's very very efficient, and yeah, there's a lot of little innovations like that. Like there's a lot of roundabouts. They're everywhere, and they're actually much better for fuel efficiency because people don't have to stop at stop signs. Right? If there's nobody coming, you just continue on through the roundabout, and it works. It seems to work very well, except when it's super busy and there's multiple lanes in the roundabout. It can be very confusing. Like there's actually this mega huge roundabout. It's like the Indianapolis 500 oval, and these cars are all barreling along extremely fast, and they seem to be going in all different directions. It's a little bit confusing, especially
A
at
little
night.
bit.
But anyway, so the COP, yeah. So personally, it's we accomplished quite a bit, I think. Um, the negotiations, the first week, they seemed to make some announcements that were half decent, like reducing, promises to reduce. They're only as good if they're done, of course, but promises to reduce methane emissions 30% by 2030, promises to stop deforestation by 2030, right? That's the big one if they actually do it. more money to developing countries for adaptation, right? And they sorely need that. Although, even the U.S. I mean, the U.S. is being hit harder than just about any other country by climate change. Whether I don't think a lot of people realize that in the country. Um, and what else did they talk about? There was this agreement that they were going to phase out coal, right? But then they sort of reneged a bit on that. Like they came up with a draft for the what was all agreed upon, and then released the draft. And but that the wording changed; it was softened, which is what usually happens according to Peter Carter. So, but again, the bottom line is greenhouse gases are increasing almost exponentially, right, from year to year, and setting records. And also, fossil fuel subsidies haven't been eliminated, and many countries promised to phase them out back in 2009 over time, and no efforts have been made towards doing that actually yet. So as long as those two things, increases of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and continuing to put money into fossil fuel development, then basically nothing is accomplished, right? But I think they're running out of excuses, the world leaders, to delay things, and there's a lot of pressure. Like there was very strong. I mean, there was a protest in Glasgow, and they were expecting 20 to 40,000 people, and they got 100,000 people out.
It was that many. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and it was in many other cities across
Yes.
Europe as well on that same day, and also in North America. In many other places around the world. So huge numbers of people, out on the streets. And, Greta was there the first week. Saw her in Madrid, but didn't see her this time. I don't even know if she went um, into the so-called blue zone, where we were doing most of our work. I don't even know if she went in because, you see people in there. Like we saw John Kerry walking by with we were actually in this press area, and they kind of kicked us out. And then we saw why about a half hour later as John Kerry sort of marched by where we would have been standing talking. So they were just sort of clearing the space in anticipation of him and maybe some other people. Not sure who he was walking with. I saw
Other people.
Mexican
He was walking with other people.
Mexican leader earlier on in the week, but sometimes I mean I've seen people like I usually see Al Gore at some point, but I didn't see him this time, and other people. But there was also some interesting science being discussed. They had an exhibition hall area where different countries had different stuff, and there was actually a methane booth, and they were talking all about the dangers of methane and from fracking and releases from the continental shelves and stuff. And there were a lot of decent talks on methane, but a lot of them conflicted with the talks. The best exhibit, the best booth, if you like, where I spent a lot of time was the cryosphere booth, and there was lots of talks on Arctic sea ice and snow
We
cover.
loved that
And
video. Everybody really loved that video that you
yeah,
took.
so I've got at least a dozen more videos to upload over the next little while. I'm not sure. I might just spend a day and send them all out there, or I might just maybe pick one a day or something and work through them. You know, but I'll be getting home in a couple days, recovering from jet lag, and then of course Shackleton has to make an appearance if he
Oh,
recognizes.
absolutely. I thought that must be your heart is breaking. You haven't seen him. This has been what, the longest you've ever been away from Shackleton?
Yeah, I mean it's coming on for almost 3 weeks, and I
Wow.
thought I thought I'd be able to find some strays to put in some videos, but people, cats can't be outside here. There's just too much traffic. The density of people is just too high. Like it's like having, you can't have your cat outside in a major city. I mean, we spent most of our time in Glasgow.
I
Um,
don't have my
this,
cats outside in
yeah,
rural America because there's also coyotes.
Yes, and they're big killers of birds, right?
Yeah, I keep them
So
away. All right, so tell the cryosphere booth, and you said you have videos coming out. Where were the all the scientists that were dancing, that were letting out steam after this? Where were a lot of them from? That must have been the cryosphere
there was a
booth.
whole there was a lot from there's some very good good universities in the UK for climate science. Like there's the Hadley Center, for
Mm-hmm.
example. There's Cambridge has a number of people. There's people like Kevin Anderson,
Yeah,
who he refuses to fly anywhere, but it's just hop on a train for him to get here,
that was great.
from England. Um, and Stephen Salter came over from Edinburgh. Uh, he's an emeritus professor at Edinburgh, and of course his work is on marine cloud brightening. And Yi Tao is the person
Oh,
who's
that's.
working at Harvard on the mirror
I want to
project,
interview that
right?
detail.
Using mirrors to reflect sunlight away from the Earth, and yeah, he so we had him on one of our sessions. We had Stephen Salter, and of course Peter Wadhams was on a number, and it
Good.
worked out very well. We had Peter Carter record 3-minute segments on the topics that we were covering, and he'll appear on most of our videos as well.
All right.
And of course Regina Valdez was great as
Oh
a
yeah,
host for our programs, and yeah, so it was
she
like I say,
is.
personally, we got a lot accomplished, and there were lots of people attending our press conferences, and I don't know how many would be watching online live, but there is the raw video that is on the conference website. So yeah, so there's lots of stuff to come out and to talk about, and so on.
Was
But
Stuart
there's
Scott
still,
missed because it was the
yeah,
first year without Stuart, and I
yes,
wanted to pay a
exactly.
little tribute to Stuart.
Yeah, so there was a whole facing future session. So we worked the climate emergency forum. We worked a lot with the facing future
Yeah,
people, and also with scientists
good.
warning Europe, and
Well, that makes
the
sense.
some other NGOs, and we were we had James Hansen wasn't there, but the lawyer who represents him, and I don't know if represents his kids, some like his
The
daughter, I
lawyer?
think, was doing the case.
Oh,
Dan Galpern was
oh,
also there, so we had a panel with him, and there was we talked about lots of different topics: climate justice, eco migration was a big topic. What was causing all the extreme weather events, like weather weirding, weather wilding, weather whiplashing
wow.
in the climate casino, that sort of thing.
So
So
what's
there's
causing
lots.
them, Paul?
I don't
I
know. It
mean,
might be something to do with the jet streams.
what do you
I don't
think?
really. It's
Oh,
funny because Charles was talking about finding all of the clips where I've talked about the jet streams, right? The Arctic warming, jet streams slowing, getting wavier, extreme weather,
yeah.
and he could probably do a whole video of all these 2-3 minute clips where I'm explaining that, going back many years, right
Yeah,
from the
just
start of
just
when I
doing.
started doing videos, and it's still important to hammer
Of
those
course it
points
is.
in.
You go back. That's why your channel's really good for that. You go back. You can find everything for a reference point. I do it. I use your channel,
Yeah.
Jim Science Talk with Jim Massa. There are a few scientists and on Twitter the go-tos. So keep the content up. There's always new people discovering it and learning, and the younger people that are learning from you. So I give you applause and kudos for that.
Yes, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just try. Yeah, it's I mean, I get always people are always asking, saying, "Oh, you should have way more people watching your videos, way more followers." So, I should actually talk to some professional PR people or something. But I mean, most of them are working for the oil companies, I think, right? So
Right. Oh
I
my
need to
God.
find,
That's pretty
I need to
pathetic.
find,
You had David for a while, and then he went
yeah,
off and got
David is
married.
still, David is still good, but David's very busy. He got married,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
but David's been great over the years. I mean, we've done, he's done he's been a great friend and he's done a great job on the blog,
Gee,
paulbeckwith.net. And
maybe I should give up environmental coffee house and just or come in partnership with you.
no, we need as many different voices in different
Don't
organizations and
run
stuff.
away scared. Don't worry, I'm not going to do it.
How's the sound from my end? Because I never did put the earphones in. Is it okay? Or
As long as I heard an echo before, that's all. But if nobody has said and
okay,
out in the chat, nobody has said anything, I think they can hear you. I have you on as loud as possible, and I made myself lower. So hopefully, my soundboard is doing what it's supposed to.
okay, yeah, no, I mean, the sound seems fine.
Good.
I don't know what you did to the sound. It's like last time we were on, it wasn't so good. There were
No,
echoes and there was
it
all kinds
wasn't
of stuff.
balanced. I fixed a few things internally with the software,
Okay, and you were
and
having
everybody's
problems
saying it.
with
I've
you
always
were
had
having
it.
a you were having a mini flood or something in
Oh
your
my
house.
God, what haven't I had? It's been rain and floods and hot water tank, and I want to get one of those on demands. The plumber came and fixed my hot water tank. It's 22 years old, fixed it with an overflow relief valve until I can afford to fix it with the on demand or electric heater that I don't have to keep the water hot all the time. So, hey,
Yeah,
we've got somebody here. We've got the Anthropocene gardener who said, Paul, hit me up for marketing help. I have an entire white paper on environmental marketing. No real clients yet, as I am stuck selling traditional crap. Whatever I can figure out to help will do. So there's a new and upcoming hello Anthropocene gardener. That's great. We will just send me an email and I will
yeah,
send
we'll
on
get
your
in
information
contact
to
and
Paul. Yeah, this
yeah,
is
and
great. Paul, I was
what was
only kidding. He runs screaming like, Sandy's gonna help me. Oh my God! Let's get
no,
this.
no, no,
Where's
no.
the where's the scream?
So have you followed, what's happened with out in British Columbia? There's been tremendous rains. Not the
Yeah,
29 inches that some parts in the U.S. got in like less than a day, almost like 30 2.5 feet of
heard.
rain. But BC's they've had about 6 or 7 inches of rain in sort of a day sort of thing, and it's very hilly, so that creates a lot of landslides. So they gave landslide warnings a couple of days, like just
Jeez,
yesterday, and then
jeez.
there was a major landslide blocking a major road, and then another one happened. So the cars couldn't go either way. The people there
Oh
was
my
like a couple
gosh.
hundred cars between the two landslides, and there's like, I don't know, 10, 15 people missing or
Well,
something
look
like
at
that.
this.
So,
I'm going to show pictures right here. See it? There's the pictures in British Columbia, and yeah, it's flooded. You see them? Can you see them, Paul?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
right.
look at that. Yeah,
So
Twitter's
this
good
is
for anything.
an atmospheric river type phenomena.
Is
An
it?
atmospheric rivers, yeah, it's basically, it's sort of like a river river in the atmosphere. Wow, this is BC.
Yes.
Wow, yeah,
Oh shit.
widespread flooding. I mean, that's a major. But the thing is,
Wow.
one of the things I pointed out in one of the press conferences, I'm putting my earphones on, so hopefully it works. Can you hear
Okay.
me still?
Oh, it sounds terrific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I think that's better. So,
I like it.
um, one of the
Yay.
things that I emphasized in one of the press conference was that people are only, if there's a massive flood in that and you're affecting your region or whatever, you're really surprised, right, the
Yeah.
first time. But people can only really get really surprised a few times, once or a couple times, and then it becomes sort of we're very adaptable in our frame of mind and thinking, right? You only get really surprised the first time, maybe a second time, and then after that, it's like, oh, this has happened before, right? It's no big deal, or not. It's no big deal, but you don't have that surprise element, and this is part of the way our
Adaptation.
brains work, adaptation to things that would have happened in the natural environment or whatever, as we were evolving. Right, so this is actually an impediment to climate change, to addressing
Wow.
climate change. Right, we're just getting
Yeah.
used to it. Like if
Yeah,
and people,
numb, comfortably numb,
yeah,
like Pink Floyd sings.
yeah. Kids and younger people that the weather's just a lot weirder for them than it was for us, but they don't. That's what they grow up with, and that's what they see. So it's not such a big deal to them. Well, we're all gonna, you know. have extreme,
Bro.
I,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
but
a
a
bit
lot of
of the
us are
psychology.
planning. I mean, like you and I go back to when my house first started having the issue with, I thought the creek was going to come over and I got the sandbags,
Yeah, right.
and now I had the whole front dug out because guess what? It flooded the basement in a whole different area.
Yes, from inside. Now, so what did you
It's
actually? You
probably
dug up. What did you do to? So
okay.
you're near the creek, and the creek has
Well,
flooded.
the creek had
Come
nothing to
right up
do
to the
with
house.
this. No, this
No, I
time.
know, but what have
Oh,
you?
that
What
was
did you
then.
do to stop the creek? Like when there's a massive,
Rerouted
the
it.
next massive.
My
You
husband blew it
rerouted
up
it.
with tannerite and blew up so it wouldn't, so the junk would be back then. That was like 2017. Blew up.
Right.
They played with toys and made it so it
Blew
went.
up. What
Yeah.
do you mean blew up? Like he
Tannerite
was
blew up
allowed.
the crap that hits our property. He blew up the shit that was making it come the way towards our house and made it sort of graded it to go another way. It wasn't
To
as
go another way.
yeah. Now, I mean, just not to come towards our house. Now, I don't know. You know, Collapse Chronicles. You know Sam Mitchell, right? He did a
Yes.
major job at his place. He moved to near the Finger Lakes in New York. He did a major job grading. He really lives on a floodplain. Mine is nothing.
Okay.
What happened to my basement was torrential rain, constant torrential rain all summer. It started sprouting leaks in my foundation, in the windows, down the wall on the one
Right.
side.
So the ground
So
was
I
just saturated.
terrible. So I had this guy with his big Planet Eater come and dig up the whole front and put flat, whatever they call it, flashing and black stuff and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. And he cleaned out my fire pit and he took out stumps from the yard that were from the tornado trees. So this guy was
Yeah.
the man. So I don't have to worry. I did the other side myself. I just
Oh, okay.
I because I don't have money to fix the other side. So I did it
Yeah.
with epoxy stuff, the gun, fix the leaks, and then
Yeah,
dry lock.
okay.
Dry lock. But that'll only last for how long, Because I
Yeah,
can't.
well-
Do you foresee these kind of rains happening in our area? We live. What do we live? 500 miles from each other.
Yeah, I mean the
600?
model. The thing about the latest version of the IPCC report is they do regional assessments, which is different from other years. So in the regional assessments, you can look at your specific region. They also have something called the Climate Atlas feature, which they didn't have before, and you can put in your location and get all kinds of information on what's expected for the climate.
cool.
I mean, your region is expecting probably more rainfall,
Yeah.
but we're going through an abrupt transition. So when we lose Arctic
Thanks,
sea
Sam.
ice, and the jet streams shift to rotate about Greenland, and it's really hard to predict. Like I would treat all those things with a grain of salt. It's really hard to predict what the new weather patterns will be once once the Arctic sea ice is gone for longer and longer periods of the summer,
That's scary. That's
and
the
then
scary
extend
part.
into being year round and stuff. It's going to be quite. There are some people that are modeling that, and we can look at what's in the paleo records to see what happened before. So there's a lot of studies going on that. So I spend I spend some time trying to think of what's. I like to try to anticipate and make a sort of best educated guess on what I think is going to happen, and
Well,
just to
everybody
yeah.
always has the question for you with, let me find it, the blue ocean event. I do have a couple of questions. We might as well segue into
Yeah,
them
so
because
go.
they will
Yeah,
bring
sure.
us.
Go for it.
We already
Yeah.
talked about me, and they all know about my water problems ad nauseum. So we're not going on me. We're going to, of course, here's the standard question from Grateful Dan: when will the first blue ocean event occur? Now, of course, we know that it's an ongoing. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah. So, first of all, at, there were some talks by, on different aspects of that, and the models. I think there's a paper. They're still talking about 2040. Okay, I mean,
Okay.
what's happening? What seems to be happening? I don't think. I think it's going to be a lot sooner than that. I think the ice is going to continue doing. The trend is still downward. The ice seems to be more resilient than we thought. Like a few years ago, after the 2007 minimum, right? That was huge, and then the 2012 minimum was even larger, and we were getting lots of cyclones up there chewing apart the ice. It looked like
We've seen some of
it could
that.
happen at any time. I mean, there are some negative, there are some sort of feedbacks that we know about that might be slowing down the total loss of sea ice. And one of them is that the more and more ice it goes, the thinner it is, and the quicker it will grow back in the fall when it starts to get cold again. Because ice is a good thermal insulator. So if you've got a very cold atmosphere and you've got a layer of ice, then it takes a long time for the water underneath the ice to cool down, because the ice is a good thermal insulator. And the thicker that the ice becomes, the slower the formation of new ice. Like the rate of growth of sea ice, it really depends a lot on that cold atmosphere, the cold temperatures getting through the ice, freezing the water on the bottom of the ice. Right. So if the ice is thicker and thicker, then the air can be very cold, and it takes a long time to add to that thickness of ice. Like it's a sort of right. So that's one of the things. So when the ice is also very thin, wave action can break it up, and that can expose more open water, between the ice, and then that can freeze. So there's a lot of different effects happening. I mean, there's enough heat underneath the ice. Like there's generally a lens of fresh water under the ice, and then below that is salty, very very salty water, which is actually a little bit warmer than the freshwater lens above. And if there's enough mixing of that water, there's enough heat below the ice to actually take out the ice. So conceivably, I think what will happen is people will say, okay, well, the ice is around, it's not going to go as quickly as we think. And then suddenly one year it'll just be poof, it's gone,
Right.
basically, because there might be a lot of churning, the heat comes up, there's enough so-called Atlantification, where the water coming in from the Arctic water is becoming more and more like the waters from the Atlantic. And there's a totally different thermal layer
Yeah.
structure in the Atlantic and the Arctic, because the Arctic is kind of unique, and also a bit in Antarctica. Normally, as you go deeper, the water gets colder, but not at the same rate. Like you hit this thermocline where there's a very sharp decline of temperature as you go deeper. But in the Arctic, as you go deeper, you get actually warmer temperatures, because the water is denser than the water at the surface, because it's extremely salty, right? It's the salt content as well as the temperature that determines the density of the seawater. So, but that condition in the Arctic, where you have that type of temperature structure as
Right.
you go down, that's becoming more and more like what the Atlantic is. And you can also talk about, say, the pacification of the Arctic, because the water coming in on the the other side, between Alaska and Siberia, through that strait is there's more and more water coming in. So the Arctic is the Arctic's under attack, if you like, but from all sides, right? And a warming atmosphere, warming oceans underneath, more and more rainfall events in the winter, like where you're having freeze-thaw cycles, and also the land is warming so much in the Arctic, right, or in the coastlines, that you're getting a lot more water from the rainfall coming down the rivers, right, that feed into the Arctic Ocean, and those rivers are warmer water. And also, there's a lot more wildfires, very, very far north, and that ash from the wildfires is coating the ice, both on Greenland and the sea ice, and it's the melt is it's a feedback. The black carbon that lands on the ice increases the melting rate. It's changing the albedo of the Arctic, right? The Arctic's getting much darker. Over the last few decades, the reflectivity, the Arctic used to reflect about 52% of the incoming solar radiation on average, but now, that reduced to 48% as of a few years ago. And that reduction was over like 20 or 30 year time scale. And then there is the study using something called Earthshine, which is a very interesting study. So basically, when you look at the moon, right, you see the crescent, the bright crescent, and then you see the rest of the moon. And sometimes you can see, the rest of the moon has some illumination. It's not completely dark. So the crescent of very bright light that you see from the moon, or say from a full moon, that's light from the sun hitting the moon, reflecting to the earth, which we see with our eyes. So it's fairly bright. But also the sun is hitting the earth and reflecting light to the moon, and then the moon is reflecting light back to the earth.
Wow.
And that's called
so cool.
That's called Earthshine. The very bright crescent is called moonshine. I think of moonshine as something else. But
something that gets us inebriated.
But anyway, the Earthshine. So there's a solar observatory in California, and they've been measuring the amount of Earthshine for like 20 or 30 years, and they've reported a decrease in Earthshine, meaning that the albedo, the average reflectivity of the Earth, has reduced. They estimated from about 30% to about 29.5%. So the overall Earth is darker. Because it's darker, it's absorbing more solar radiation, and that would add a forcing of about 0.5 watts per square meter on top of the forcing from greenhouse gases and so on. So, why is this happening? Depending on the timing of they're measuring the Earthshine at all times, so it depends on the orientation of the Earth. Like in some cases, the reflectivity of the Pacific is very, depending on the time, they know, okay, this light is being reflected from the Pacific Ocean, and they see the biggest decrease of reflected light from the Pacific Ocean. And the reason for that is that the marine clouds over the ocean, there's a lot less of them. We're getting less and less marine clouds over the ocean, and the marine clouds are low-level clouds, about a kilometer and a half above the surface of the Earth, and those clouds actually block sunlight and cause some cooling of the Earth. So with less of those clouds, there's more there's more heating of the Earth. There's more sunlight on the Earth. So it needs to be confirmed with other studies, but it's an interesting thing. So the Stephen Salter's idea of marine cloud brightening, could become much more valuable to compensate for this effect, right?
So that would be treating one part of the puzzle, just or putting a Band-Aid on one piece, and then somebody else will come up with a Band-Aid for another piece, and the hope is to have one big bandage.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of ties in with the idea of mirror, because the mirror would be mostly land-based mirrors. I mean, one of my biggest concerns is just very practical. It's like what's to stop the mirrors getting so dusty that they lose their
Or
functionality,
keep
right?
them from
But
breaking and destroying. I mean, they'll use, I'm sure, amazingly plastic and fossil fuel made materials, but it'll
yeah,
help in the long run. There's a cost
yeah,
benefit analysis here.
yeah. Well, they'd be angled at
Yeah.
roughly the angle would be roughly the latitude of your location. So say Ottawa 45 degrees north, these mirrors would be angled at
Wow.
45, the same angle as solar panels in a particular
Okay.
region, right? Their angle is about the same as the latitude. And so when
That's
it,
wild.
if if they were in an area where you got rainfall, the rain would, wash dust off them supposedly at that
Okay.
angle. And also, I mean, glass is very plentiful, and the amount of aluminum that you need to put on the glass is very small. Like it's a very thin layer of aluminum to reflect, over 90% of the incoming light. So the materials are it is
It's
scalable.
feasible.
Like yeah, so it is scalable, and there are some. So we need to basically try a lot of different things, and maybe something will eventually work, right? Like
It had to
a
be
lot of the
fascinating to have these conversations
yeah, I
with
mean,
these
there's
people.
paints. One of the things is with the reflection from a mirror is called specular. Like if you shine a laser beam at a mirror, right, you have the light coming in a narrow beam and a narrow beam coming out. But if you have a very rough surface and the laser hits that surface, then the light would be scattered in all directions, and that would be a more diffuse reflection.
Oh,
And so you can look at one of the things I was talking about with Yitao was, they have these paints that are highly reflective now. They have barium sulfide and some other things, which they're not harmful substances, but you can create white paints that reflect, enormous amounts of the light, like 99 point whatever percent of the incoming light. But then it goes off in all directions. Like it's not a specular reflection. The light,
okay.
light hits it and then it scatters off in all directions. It's sort of the opposite to
Here it
these
is.
paints that can make things extremely black. Like they have this black, what is it, Vanta black or some, I don't remember what it's called, but they have this black paint which, you paint an object and it looks like you're looking into a black hole or something. I mean, it's completely black. It reflects almost no light.
Really?
It absorbs like 99 point something percent of light, and it looks it looks weird as an object
Yeah.
because yeah, so it's the opposite of that. So there's the
So weird
paints. I mean,
objects. Well, this guy,
I think
Scott was asking about has anyone done a calculation of painting all rooftops white
yes,
as
yes. I
another
mean, I think
mitigating measure?
yeah. I mean, most of our roads in at least in northeastern cities, like it's a bit different in some southern cities. Like some of the roads are a lighter color in say Texas and stuff because the temperatures get so hot there that it just melts asphalt, right? So there's some materials put into the asphalt. In Scotland, it's
Okay.
interesting. They put these little pebbles or rocks in the asphalt, and they put different pebbles in. Like there's red ones for bike paths, and there's just the
Yeah,
standard
really?
gravel type things for
Oh,
sidewalks. So a
yeah.
lot of sidewalks, it's not they're not poured concrete. They're just asphalt, but the asphalt has these little pebbles. So as they're a lot. It rains a lot in Scotland, and it's hilly in some of the cities. So as you're walking on these sidewalks, they could be slippery, but they're not. I mean, you have pretty good traction for some reason. I think the pebbles in the asphalt might increase the durability of them. It increases the albedo of them or the reflectance of them because it's not just completely solid, black asphalt. But there are if of course in the wind, like the idea of if you have a white roof, then it's great in the summer, right? It
Yeah.
reflects away a lot of sunlight, keeps
Right.
your house is cooler. But if you're in the northern hemisphere and you experience the winter, then you want a black roof in the
So you put a
winter.
cover on it.
So
I
you get,
mean,
so yeah, so you
people
need a little
people come up
switch
with
to
everything.
change the color.
Yeah.
Color or something. But I may have to go out and buy a whole bunch of mirrors and stick them on my roof and just do some experiments.
Do it. Yeah, really. Do some experiments.
With the
Has anybody talked to you about collaborating?
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, on
there's
like real something that would be really cool and
something
tangible.
that's real. Well, I think Stephen Salter,
Not
he's really
saying not
looking for,
real. You understand what I was saying.
yeah, collaborating to
Well,
save the planet.
possibly,
You mean?
yeah, to maybe, I mean, publishing or working with a team. You're brilliant.
Well, I am. I don't know about that. I mean, I try to,
Okay.
do my little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ideas. It's just finding, the time to do a lot of these things. I mean, I was hoping to write a book at some point and started doing
Yeah.
some writing, and then that, I got. I mean, I like doing the videos because I like,
Well, we
you
love
know,
you
it
doing the
it
videos.
it really keeps me, sort of. I like to do a lot on events that are happening so
Hmm.
that they're very relevant at the time. But I used to be able to keep up with all the events, but now it's just like sometimes you just feel like throwing up your hands
So
because
much.
every day there's a new disaster somewhere, on the planet. I mean, I could do a video about the BC flooding, for example, when
But
I
I'm
get
sure you
back. But I'm
will.
sure some other place will be flooded. Or, I mean, I think the bottom line is that these extreme weather events are going to get much, much worse as we continue to lose Arctic sea ice, and then the sea ice will be gone, and then the Arctic will start warming up even more. Even it'll notch up the acceleration of warming of the Arctic will notch up because the ice in the Arctic keeps it cooler, right? Because it takes an awful lot of energy to melt the ice, but the temperature of the water stays close to the melting point of the ice, minus 1.8 for seawater, to about roughly, but when the ice is gone, all that energy will heat up the water. It'll heat up the water at the surface, so that'll mix with water below. And the longer there's no ice in the Arctic, the more and more heating there'll be of the water, and the warmer the water temperatures, the less freezing there'll be. When the winter returns, and eventually you've got no ice at all in the Arctic, and you've got a much warmer Arctic, a much warmer world. And then what's going to happen with the jet streams? With no jet streams to guide weather patterns, then a lot of the
Oh my
weather
God.
patterns are more
I'm getting overwhelmed.
dependent on
Yeah.
land ocean contrast, which is basically you're talking about monsoonal type weather. And with monsoonal type weather, you can talk about torrential rains and endless rains. Like you're connecting a fire hose from the ocean to the land. Actually, think of Hurricane Harvey. Churning up the coastline for about 4 or 5 days, moving a mile an
Different
hour or a
coastlines.
couple miles an hour, basically connecting all of the water from the ocean to and dumping it on the land, like, billions of gallons or whatever
Billions.
of water.
Wow.
So yeah,
All
we
right.
have it's we should all be very thankful that we're alive at this time. We get to see our climate completely going haywire, right?
I guess that's a
No,
way of looking at it. Gratitude for
right?
watching the end of the show. Okay, listen, I
Well, it's
have to do
the
something
end of
here,
what
Paul.
we know, and then maybe it's
Yeah.
some sort of
New. No.
new. I don't know. I mean, there were some interesting talks, about how we need to change our total frame of mind and thinking about
Yeah.
our interactions with the climate, and in order to survive, and I mean, what's going to happen when we with all of these. With I guess the biggest concern with the loss of Arctic sea ice and then no sea ice for subsequent years, or less and less sea ice, and the greatly warming Arctic, the weather patterns are going to be so disrupted. It's going to be very difficult for us to grow enough food, I think, to supply food to the world. So I think we're going to have food price spikes and
they're happening
huge
now.
geopolitical unrest and conflicts and famine. Even and then we'll have to nobody will be able to ignore climate
It's
change.
well, climate change. There's, and I don't know if it's related, but there's a mass migration in Eastern Europe right now. And it's probably from the warring thing, the warring aspects. But that's a
Yeah,
big
yeah. I
thing
mean,
that's
it's
going on.
yeah. I mean, look at all of the Syria is a perfect example.
Yes,
Well,
that's
I mean,
another.
before that, I mean, if you look at Katrina, right? So New Orleans gets trashed, so much of the city moves to places like Houston, and then lots of people they never move back to New Orleans. The population, if you look at the population numbers for New Orleans, they've never recovered. Like many people just started new lives elsewhere from nothing basically because they lost everything. And then, of course, a few years after that, then Houston gets hit by not tornadoes,
Yeah,
by
hurricane.
hurricanes, tropical
Yep.
storms and stuff, with lots of flooding there. Or look at Paradise, California, right? The city that was completely destroyed by wildfire a couple of years ago.
And then
And
to
then a
Canada,
lot of
there's
people there that lost everything, they went to Chico, California, and they were given tents and food and clothes and stuff by the residents there. And they set up the tents in the parks and public spaces there. And then, but they were there 2 years later, and then their tents were confiscated and stuff because people, they kind of outstayed their welcome in the eyes of the people in Chico, right? They just got tired of their parks being occupied by all these people in tents and stuff. So, and
nowhere to
then we
go.
just lost, the town of Lytton. We'll
Yeah,
see
Lytton.
Canada's version of this.
Yep.
Remember the temperatures that we hit in Canada? We hit 49.6 degrees in this town in the interior of British Columbia this summer. It was over 48 degrees Celsius, which is, sorry, 120, 100 and, it's about
48 minus
120 or
112.
something
Okay.
Fahrenheit, right? So we hit these temperatures, record temperatures for Canada 3 days in a row, and then the fourth day the town burned down, right? So we'll see, what happens, if the town is completely rebuilt or what will happen. Right, and then I think there's a town called I'll get the name wrong. There's a town in Pakistan. It hit 125
Is that the
Fahrenheit.
hottest on the planet ever? Something like that
Yeah,
happened
well,
this
it's pretty
year.
close. And then
Yeah.
it hit this temperature, and what do people do? I mean, you can't. They work at night, try to sleep or cool down at day. How do you cool down? I mean, if you're near a river or bodies of water, you can find some cooling. There's no air conditioning there. You know what people were doing? They were sleeping on the mediums between opposing lines of traffic, right? Because the cars would go by and create some wind, and
Oh my
that could
God.
cool them down a bit. So they would sleep right in the middle, right?
Whatever
I
you
mean,
gotta do.
yeah, like
Hey,
it's.
Paul, can we get to a call? I have to get to this. This is from Lightning Rod, who's your fellow Canadian. And he said, please, 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 Paul, leave a comment at Rebel News to counter this guy claiming to be from Ottawa to confuse people with you. So just that
Oh,
you
really?
know, I suppose there's some dude that's being yep, and Lightning Rod follows all of us, and he's from up there. He's from where are you, Lightning Rod? Well, anyway, he wants you to know this. So I think I might have I have a whole bunch of questions, but just so you know, that is what's going on. Watch out. So Rebel News, go and leave a comment. Okay?
Okay,
All
Rebel
right.
News. Okay,
Now,
so fire away with your questions, and I'll
all
try
right.
to have short answers so we can get to
Okay.
lots of them.
I have one first, and that's did you come across anybody talking about animal agriculture? Changing that,
Yes,
getting rid of that.
yes,
Okay, so
yes.
there
There's a
was.
guy. There's a guy who comes to every single COP, and he talks about the burning machine, which is burning of fossil fuels, and he talks about the killing machine,
All right.
right, which is killing of animals for people to eat. And he talks all about the food shortages, the ability, food waste, every aspect of food, and how important it is to eat much less meat.
Nothing
If you
in the
don't become
convention, nothing in writing that says any of the countries are going to try to remediate these behaviors.
Yeah, not that I know of.
No.
I
Okay.
I have to read the final report. But I think
I didn't see anything, but other
yeah, I
people
don't
have
think there's
asked
anything
me.
in there.
Okay, next question. Let's see. Field bee. This we might have even covered this. Paul, what's the scoop on the structures? Will they reflect enough sunlight? I think we covered this, as well as generate
Yeah.
electricity will they generate electricity by concentrating some reflected light to
Okay,
delay
so
a
that's
BOE?
right. So there's something, there's solar photovoltaic, which is just the standard solar panels that people know about. There's
Okay.
concentrated solar power where you have a whole bunch of mirrors, like in the California desert, that
Yep.
are pointing up at a boiler on top of a tower, and it boils the water, and then the steam comes off, and it powers generators, just like just like a power plant. How you generate boil the water to generate the steam. There's many different methods, right? Even nuclear plants do that. Coal burning plants, any natural gas plants, any power plant does that. And then once you have the steam, then the technique is the same for all the power plants. It's just how you boil that water. So concentrated solar power can do that, and you can use some curved mirrors, and they kind of track the sun, so they're always focusing the light on this boiler on top of the tower.
question.
And then you have the mirror, which is just reflecting away the sunlight. I mean, I think the mirror has a lot of potential. I just wonder whether it would be better than putting mirrors all over the earth to put them up in, to have Elon Musk just bring up some rolls of mylar that are coated with aluminum and just sort of unravel them in a certain
In
region of
space.
space and reflect some sunlight from there,
Well,
right?
there
And
you
the
go. Let's
advantage
put
of
them to
that
work.
is that could be working 24/7, right? The mirrors on Earth are only working during daylight hours, but you could put them in, you could choose the orbit so that they were always between the
Jeez.
Earth and the sun, right? So they'd work 24/7, and they're not going to get coated with dust, and they're the material that you need, on Earth with all the glass and the
Yeah.
aluminized mirrors. There's a lot of materials needed. Up in space, it would be a very thin mylar sheet and aluminized. So, it's but and the launch capability, the launch capacity is increasing with Musk's programs, and
Still
um,
pollutes a lot. Still fossil
yeah.
fuels. So I
So
guess
I
it's
don't know. I
never going
mean,
to
there's
be
always
utopia. We're never going
trade-offs.
to have, of course, there's
And
trade offs.
Alex Carlin was. We actually got a recording. I had a good long conversation with Russ George, who didn't come to the conference, but he's the guy who put iron sulfate off the coast of Vancouver and stimulated a phytoplankton bloom in 2012. And then the RCMP went into his office and confiscated all his equipment and all his data because they didn't like what he was doing all of a sudden. And
Geoengineering.
he's a very interesting, he's a great guy. He's like a
Okay.
brilliant, lots of ideas on stuff. So had a good conversation with him, and that's for the idea of ocean pasture restoration, right? Stimulating
Can you tell me
phytoplankton.
what's his name?
Russ George.
Yeah, okay.
So
I'll
he
look it
wasn't
up.
at the COP, but just Google, look on Wikipedia about Russ George.
Russ
And
George, I just put his name up, so you guys look him up
yes,
and we'll find some information on this individual. Sorry, I couldn't change the color.
yeah.
Russ George, thank you.
But the idea of ocean pasture, I mean, when I mentioned the albedo of the Earth is reflecting less light because there's less clouds in the Pacific. One of the reasons there's probably less clouds is because there's less phytoplankton. So the phytoplankton, that live just at the surface of the ocean because they need the sunlight. right? Like any other plant. If there's less of them, they actually create something called dimethyl sulfide and a lot of other phytochemicals, which then go up and they act as cloud condensation nuclei.
Damn.
So they help in the generation of the low-level marine clouds over the ocean. So if there's less phytoplankton, there's less of those cloud condensation nuclei, and more light hitting the ocean.
Interesting
Right.
stuff.
So everything's connected to everything else.
Everything is.
You just have to
even
look,
in the world of the Jetsons and the future and techno and well, that's what it's beyond me.
So
I'm
there's
watching it. I'm like you said,
my
it's a great time to
favorite,
be allowed to watch it.
my favorite idea. I mean, I've talked about the three-legged bar stool, right? We need to slash fossil fuel emissions. We need to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and we need to cool the planet. So, marine cloud brightening, ocean pasture restoration, MEER, these are some of the most promising ideas by far that we could, quite easily scale up, I think.
Okay.
Like they would do the job. I mean, we just need to, but we need to take some of the U.S. military budget and have many of those scientists and engineers working on some of these projects to carry them to deploy them and get them going.
Put these fuckers put these guys to good use. I'm sorry, I'm with you, but
so that was a bit too long an answer for me.
No, it was good. Everybody learned from that, and I have to ask this question from TCR: was overshoot ever addressed? Does anybody talk about the William Catton scientific overshoot type issue, or is that taboo?
No, it was talked about. Lots of these things are talked about in what is the side events, which are
that's
press
conferences
and side events. But in terms of the negotiators, and who knows what they're arguing about whether a certain word should be in the report or a comma's in the wrong place. And
well, you guys were doing it all.
Like the COP is almost like two worlds. It's like the world of reality with the NGOs and young people, and the scientists, and then there's the make-believe world of the politicians, and they're in this enormous, huge room. It's like you wouldn't believe the size of this room. I'll post some pictures of it, and it's a bit crazy.
A very big conference.
If I cut out all of a sudden, my phone is gonna probably just completely run out of power, and because I've got the microphone on.
All right. Well, let me see if I can get any more questions. We have
actually just a sec. Let me run and get my battery, and I'll have to go off.
I'll play with something. We're having a good afternoon. Everybody's enjoying this.
The connection. The connection for the earphones and the connection to charge the thing from my battery. Okay, hang on.
Yeah, I'll play something. Let's see, guys. What are we going to play while Paul's fixing it? We don't want to end this. So let's see. What can we look at? Oh, here's some pictures from British Columbia. It's Canada Day. Holy shit. Of course, he took his microphone, so there's some crap, but you guys don't mind, right? Well, this is good. I'm willing to go as long as we go. The dichotomy. Hey, sadly, it will. It's the make-believe world we are all deluded by. Do you guys hear a very bad feedback from me? Do you hear feedback?
It's gone.
No, I know yeah, I can hear you. They can. I don't know if they can hear you in the green room. I can hear you.
Yeah,
honey, we've gotten big time. I have a green room. I have a green room, and I can do myself in a bubble here. Look, check it out. We're just looking at British Columbia while you're getting your technology fixed.
Okay, I think I'm good. I don't think I'll run out of power now. It's It's back to charging.
Because we have quite a few more questions, and while everybody's got you, I'm gonna bring you. All right, I'm gonna bring us back. I'm bringing us back.
Do you like the analogy of COP to the the guy who said that he was gonna quit drinking by 2050? he wasn't going to change his habits. He was going to continue
Just gonna
drinking
keep.
until like the day before,
Holy shit.
and then cut out completely because
Uh-huh.
and he was going to actually you can make analogies, comparisons to all of the
All of
things that
this.
are going on at COP
All
when
of
they
this.
just keep pushing the dates further and further into the future.
Well,
And the idea is you've got 10 years. It's always 10 years, right, to make
well, yeah,
changes.
but here I'm not going to ask you how long have we got, Paul, because nobody here is going to take that and make anything of it. It's not. That's
Well,
just
I think
not our.
everybody has their own view on how long we have, right?
I guess. There's no
It's
scientific
not.
prognostication. Okay, it's the end of the world as we know it on 2026 or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I
a
was
trick. It's
walking
it's going to be
through.
the trickle. It's going to be the trickle down effect in real reality,
Death
not
by a
just
thousand cuts.
economically.
I mean, I was walking through a cemetery near Stirling Castle in Stirling, Scotland, and there's one part of the graveyard, and the oldest headstone is from 1597. The gravestone. So
1597.
I couldn't find it. I mean, I saw some stuff in the 1600s, but it's quite it's pretty
Wow,
old, right? I
old.
mean, think of what the world was like back then, and think of the changes that we've made since 1750. The baseline thing is again a mess. Like that, some of those that video I put of all of the ice people talking about the permafrost and the Arctic sea ice melt and what was going on in Greenland. Like Jason Box was there. He gave an excellent talk.
We had a comment
Um,
about Jason Box actually, and that was from I've got John Bell said, Paul, Jason Box is concerned more than ever about Greenland melting quicker as the highest peak is experiencing rain, not snow. Is the thawing exponential of Greenland? Is it exponential?
yes, I mean I have there's yeah, it's happening way faster. And if you look at the curve, it is the rate of melt is increasing. There is some
Mm-hmm.
fluctuation year to year, but
Right.
it's it's going fast, and there's the feedbacks. There's yeah. So I filmed he gave a talk which I filmed, and I'll post that very soon. The
Good.
audio is the audio is pretty bad. There's lots of echoes and stuff, but the slides are excellent. I think I'll post it anyway. I don't think I can do
I can
anything about
fix
the
it.
audio,
I bet I
but
could. I'm
yeah. But I
learning.
mean, if you turn it up, you can hear a sort of
Oh,
background
there.
noise in the car.
Uh,
But
so you need a
the
background
ones
noise
I filmed
removal.
after that were better, because I managed to do a couple tricks to get much better sound, right,
Good.
and filter out the.
Me too.
But that's worth posting just because it's Jason Box, and
Yeah, good.
yeah, we had a good chat. We met in Madrid a couple of years ago,
Seems like he's scared.
and actually we also no, we first met in Paris
Yeah.
in 2015 because he was talking about the cold spot south of Greenland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people call it the global warming hole, an
Oh my
area where the
God.
ocean isn't warming, right? And he was saying, it's thought to be like water coming from the Arctic from ice melt that's colder. And I said, no, it's just the jet stream has shifted location. It used to go through there and it goes further south, so it's colder there. He looks at me, maybe, right? I think that's more of the reason why it's actually, this global warming hole, if you want to call it that, is there. So this is a sure sign of slowing of the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation.
I'm going to have to
Definite
get you
sign.
and Jim Massa together on a show. Oh my gosh. I'll just say nothing. I'll say, Jim, this is Paul, and the two of you have at it. He's an oceanographer, and he talks about AMOC. He talks about a lot of similar things, but in a different way. But the two of you, I'm doing it. I'm bringing you together.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Sound
it
good?
sounds good.
All right.
Peter Wadhams is great. I mean, he's
Oh, he's
you know
wonderful. We love
Peter
him.
Wadhams. Yeah, I mean, he had some health issues. He slipped in the bathtub. Of all ways you can get hurt, slipping in
Oh,
the
yeah,
bathtub.
yeah.
If you've ever been to
I've
the
been
UK,
there.
the
I
bathtubs are like
slipped.
swimming pools.
They are. Oh,
Like
jeez.
like the bathtub, in order to climb in, you need a ladder.
Really? Oh, jeez.
It's ridiculous.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
So I
God.
mean, to get out,
Poor Peter.
it's all slippery and wet. No
Poor
wonder. I think
Peter.
they do it so that you know, population density is high in the UK. I think they do it to get rid of some of their older people. Because when you reach a certain age, it becomes almost
Wow.
impossible
Jeez.
to do that.
Oh, my
It's sort of
God.
like their way of Soylent Green, if you remember. I don't know.
Oh, Paul,
Anyway,
it's late there. Oh, sorry. All
yeah.
right, let me
So
get some more. Let's go for. Okay, let's see.
yeah,
Let's
more questions.
go. Question. Where can we go that I didn't go? Okay, John D. This goes all the way to crop yields because earlier the chat was talking a lot about crops. 1C equals equates to a 15% decline in crop yields, yet figures show declines of between 20 and 30% on different continents. How do we account for that gap?
Yeah. Well, I guess I mean, depends on that's sort of a general overall number. It depends. Each individual plant has a specific there's an optimal temperature and water and precipitation amount for the highest yield of that. So if there's too much water to not enough water, if the temperature's too, there's generally a curve that comes up like this, and there'll be a peak. I got to hold it in front of the camera. There'll be a peak yield, and then it'll drop off. So there'll be a certain temperature, and you can have a curve for precipitation, yield with precipitation, and yield with temperature. When you mix those two factors, like so there's some crops that are much more tolerant of higher
Okay.
temperatures than others. And so it's really, I mean, some countries are focusing on rice, other ones maybe have more maize, more corn, or
Well, we're going
there's
to have to adapt
focusing
our
on wheat.
diets.
Yeah, and there's also been a lot of uh, there's been a lot of work, before we had DNA analysis and stuff. I mean, different people would splice different plants together, and try to use
Hmm.
natural selection to increase the yields. But then if and also the amount of grain, like if you're growing wheat, the you're only extracting the kernels, if you like, right? So how much weight of the whole plant is in kernels, and if you make it grow much faster, than there might be less nutrients, for example, in the part that you eat, and things like that. So there's a lot of different complexities in growing it. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, so it's there's different. I mean, if you look at the varieties of wheat, there's many different varieties grown around the world, that are sort of tailored. They're used to sort of specific climates in certain countries. So there's a lot of variability in it, right?
Okay.
But the risk lies in simultaneous crop failures, right? If we get, the jet stream is going up and down, right, and circumventing the planet, and if it gets stuck in place, you could have torrential rains taking out crops in one country and drought taking them out in another country, and if we just happen to be unlucky so that the pattern of the jet streams causes multiple failures of
Yeah.
crops in different regions, then depending on how
There you
much we
go.
stored, and so on. But I mean, one thing is, we at least we have the margin of about 30% to 40%, which is all of the food wastage around the world
Oh, a lot.
presumably would really drop off significantly. If if you doubled food prices around the world, right, then people wouldn't be wasting 30-40% of the food.
Yeah, that's
right?
a
So we've
really
got a bit
horrible
of a
thing.
so we've got a bit of a margin there, right? It's sort of like a buffer if you think of it,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Like if we lost 40% of our food production one year, people could all eat the same amount with 0% wastage. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the problem with food wastage is very poor refrigerator design.
Well, he said, thanks, Paul. I'm wondering whether the figure of 15% is purely temperature and water rather than crop varieties.
There's also, well, it's also the soil, right? Because
Oh, gosh. I worked
the
on
the
soil,
soil,
yeah, all over.
yeah, because if you're in drought and the soil gets super dry, that can cut the yields. But if
You
there's
have
enough
to add
rainfall and the
stuff.
soil the soil is still, got a lot of water content, then the crops can tolerate higher temperatures. And it depends on, if the crops are, if the temperatures are much higher for extended periods of time, of course, it's much worse than if it's just a heat wave lasting a few days sort of thing. There
Hmm.
can be recovery of the crops from that. So there's all kinds of different factors, I guess.
Okay, let's see. Paul. Oh, here's an interesting one. Can Paul quickly give his thoughts on the Build Back Better bill that just passed? No, wait, the Build Back Better didn't pass. The infrastructure bill passed in the United
Infrastructure.
States. Infrastructure. Do you have any ideas? I wouldn't know if you did right now because you probably haven't been paying
Well,
attention.
I know that infrastructure is crumbling because it's been neglected for so long, right, in many countries. And extreme weather events are really wreaking havoc on infrastructure, right? On, washing out roads
Yeah.
and, like, in Canada, we in places where you have winters, right? Like, not just Canada, but in places where you have winters,
My house is
if
snowing.
you have it, we used to have like it was warm in the summer, colder in the shoulder seasons, but still above zero, and then
Yeah.
below zero all winter,
Yeah.
right? And it would only transition through zero not that often, like maybe a dozen times in the fall, dozen times in the spring, and that would be it. But now we go months on end where the temperature goes above zero, below zero, above zero, and that really destroys infrastructure because the water there's nothing more powerful than water filling a crack and then freezing, right, and opening the crack wider, then more water gets in the next time, and so these
Yeah.
cycles, if you I'd like to see a study on the number of times the temperature in a particular region crosses zero, right? Goes above and below, because the number of times that happens has kind of exploded in many places. So the infrastructure just can't handle it. Like it doesn't last
In
anymore.
in the United States, the infrastructure bill will go. I from what I know, it will go to some green energy jobs, some putting solar panels and
Yeah,
Vegematic, who's a friend of our channel, is here, and he has a channel also. He says it's a corporate giveaway, but what are the corporations going to do with it? And will the politicians understand that the things that need to be done are to mitigate the effects of climate change, or will these individual, let's say, states and then counties in states that receive money, will they appropriately allocate it to climate change mitigation? Yet to be seen here when you
yeah.
break
It's
down a
it's
bill.
it's yeah, but at least it's nice to be able to debate these points instead of having the other guy that was in power just like running like a bull in a china shop and destroying everything.
We don't miss, what is it, TFG, the former guy. We don't miss him.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
So just a couple more because then
Oh,
I
shut
have
up.
to
Sure,
watch.
you're very tired. All right, well,
Well, I have to watch an episode or two of Downton Abbey.
all right,
So
well, I think.
that's
Oh, Poppy said, Paul, did you demonstrate your CO2 meter?
I have this. I actually I was going to talk about that, and I have some very interesting stuff to show on that
All
because
right, but you'll do a video
it's
on it.
vital. Because what I discovered is that the place in Glasgow with the
Yeah,
lowest CO2 level
yeah.
was the was a casino.
Really? That's
Yeah, yeah, it
cool.
was 415 parts per million, which is lower
Oh
than
my God.
inside than outside. So they must have had some sort of scrubber. I know that they often pipe oxygen into a casino in order to
Sure.
keep people awake so they can lose more money. So they had anyway they had a scrubber
Oh
or
my
something
gosh.
because the CO2 level outside would be like 440, 450. Glasgow's 55 degrees north latitude, so we know the CO2 increases as you go higher, closer and closer to the Arctic, right? But in the casino, it was better than outside. Like
Wow.
the
That's
ventilation
scary.
is they've got incredible ventilation there because they want the air to be as fresh as possible to keep
When
people
there's
alert and
money
awake.
to be made,
Yeah,
and
so
and there's no money to be made off climate change mitigation yet, but there's I
yes,
guess the but I watched a lot of the we don't have time, the Swedish capitalists that were there
yeah,
at I watched a
yeah,
lot of them. I did a show on them. They're interesting because they've got everybody's technology. They've got it covered no matter what it is.
yeah. But it was
And
it's
so it's
interesting. I mean,
fascinating to me to see it all.
yeah, I mean, the highest CO2 levels that I measured, and those would be bad for transmitting the virus and stuff. Was on
Ah,
one of the buses. You couldn't open the windows, and the levels went, over 1,600 parts per million, something like that. And then also in the airplane flights were pretty good, except when they load up the plane before they and then they pull it out before they start up the engine. So because the engines are off, the ventilation is not so good. So it gets
right.
quite hot in there, and the
Mm-hmm.
CO2 level went up to about 14, 1,500
Yeah.
parts per million. And then when the plane lands and they shut the engines off as they're pulling it into the hangar, the CO2 level also spikes up at those moments. So those are the crucial moments to be wearing masks, right? If there was any, and also the air is very dry, as you know, on airplanes, and it's because they lower the pressure. When we were at 39,000 feet, the pressure inside the plane was about 812 millibar. So it was about 20%
Ooh.
lower than the pressure at on the ground, in atmospheric pressure on the ground, which was interesting because I mean I knew it was lower in airplanes and atmospheric because that would put too much stress on the plane, right? The higher the plane goes, like the long haul flight across the Atlantic was at 39,000 feet, and so the plane was only pressurized to 812 or so. But the ventilation was fairly good. They bring in air from outside, but they don't. The air is so super dry because the air outside is low pressure, not much water vapor in it when they bring it in, and the pressure is goes up to pressurize the plane, so it's comfortable for people. It's super dry. Like the humidity was about 10-12% or something. So
Dang.
the sensor so I took data on CO2 levels, on
That's interesting.
humidity and temperature and air
Wow.
pressure, and also radon levels, which is the
Oh.
radon levels in Amsterdam airport are very, very high. I think they've done a lot of renovations to the airport, and they've used concrete, which puts out radon. And until the
Wow.
concrete, if they did it fairly recently, I think it's leaking more radon than other places. So
So
you don't
healthy.
want to spend
Gonna be
a lot of
there.
time there. So lots of sort of little discoveries. I'll do a whole video on it very soon.
All
Once I
right.
finish analyzing the
Great.
data.
Well, Poppy, I hope you're happy with the answer that he did. Listen, everybody's saying thank you, and Hunter says enjoy your TV show, Paul. Then save us tonight, and
Yeah.
And Jim said, I wish Paul been my professor in college. Of course, we both would have been 18. You're both the same age. But everybody appreciates.
Right.
So I'm going to start the little goodbye music. And thank you. This was awesome. I really appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you
Thanks
a
so
lot.
much for making it. And I might even edit this into a two-piecer, two-parter. All right, everybody.
Okay, well, we'll do it
Thank
again
you,
soon.
guys. Thank you, Paul. Have a safe trip home. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I can get on the plane because I passed the test. I probably have, I've done more tests in the last few weeks than I hadn't done any tests before, right?
Oh,
But
wow.
we had to do a test every single day to get into the COP, and then
Yeah,
a
you
more
said that.
involved test before a couple days after you arrive. We had to do it in Canada before we left, and
But you're
we
all
had to
safe.
do it. We just did it this morning in order so that we can get on the airplane to fly back. So there
All
you go.
right, sweetie. Peace out. You're safe. You'll be
Okay.
safe when you get home, and we'll hear from you on your channel. We love you.
Well, you'll see Shackleton. The
Yes!
first video when I get home. Maybe I'll just do a video of Shackleton.
That would be great. I didn't even bring Buddy in
Okay.
here, but peace out. We can
thanks a lot.
talk all night. Bye-bye,
Okay,
sweetheart.
bye-bye.
Bye.